Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Chamber TV, episode number 148. And we are live today on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Really excited to be able to come to you today to talk about a concept that has a bunch of words in it that might potentially be off-putting to people when they hear it: technology and innovation. And when you put them together, that comes up with a killer topic, and that's where we are today. But fortunately, we have a subject matter expert extraordinaire with us today who's going to walk us through all the details of truly, in today's day and age, post-pandemic, how to leverage the technology that we have available to us on a day-to-day basis and to be able to bring that into our organizations, to adopt it, to adapt it, to bring it into a place where the culture and our employees are able to really work with it and be facile, and most importantly, to drive innovation and be really competitive with your business proposition. So with that, let me introduce our special guest and our subject matter expert. He is Todd Knapp, and he is the president, CEO, and founder of Envision Technology Advisors. And we really appreciate your being with us today, Todd.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have the discussion.
Great. So why don't you start off with, walking us through what you are going to share with us today, what we're going to learn from you, and we'll take it from there. So give us a 30,000-foot overview first.
Yeah, sure. So the 30,000-foot overview, we're going to talk about putting together a culture of innovation. What that means to your organization is trying to figure out where the technology in your organization can help you do something that is maybe unexpected by your customer population or by even your internal users, finding new ways to be efficient, new ways to grow your organization, and just figuring out how to exist and survive in the modern economy, which is really a data-driven hybrid conversation. So that's what we're doing today.
Okay, well, before we continue, I want to tell you that I love your backdrop. I think Wikipedia would give you an A plus plus plus. I love the drill there. So there must be a reason you've assembled all those artifacts in your background. So
Yeah. So
tell us about what's in your mind.
so actually, it's funny that I wanted to do this presentation from this building because this is actually a building that I built during the pandemic on my property in Rhode Island. And I was spending a lot of time thinking about, because I'm a business owner and I've got a large office up in Pawtucket, and all my employees were working from home. And I started thinking about, boy, what would the modern office look like if I was going to design an office from the ground up and reimagine what a workplace means in a post-pandemic world? What would I do? And so I bought this little building, and actually I'll show you my little layout here. I bought this building. It's a prefab shed. You can see my little fireplace that I've got going on the wall on my flat panel over there. And what I put together here is a 100% cloud native building. Absolutely everything in this building is integrated to the cloud. It's in fact all integrated to the Microsoft cloud. Every electrical outlet, light switch, light that you see, even this blue bar of lighting behind me, this blue bar of lighting is integrated into my calendar, for example. And so when my meetings are getting ready to end a few minutes before my meeting, this lighting is going to turn green, because that means green means go. It's time to go. I've got another meeting coming up. So I designed this space. That TV is part of a telepresence system. Those rafters you see above me have omnidirectional microphones, and the space was designed from the ground up with the idea of hybrid workplace.
That is so incredibly cool. Thank you for sharing that and
Oh, yeah.
showing us your space. And I'm very impressed that you could conceptualize all this and actually get it done on your own.
When I get bored, I start doing things. That's the pandemic left me stuck at home, so I had to build something.
Yeah. How big is the quote unquote shed?
So it's about 16 feet by 14, and by the way, the thing behind me is because I spend a lot of time testing, like this is a hybrid telepresence system made by Yealink, and I was testing this. So the drills are actually not prop. This is just this is where I tinker with things. So, I'm playing around with some portable monitors and touch screens that I'm messing around with right now. But even like that other desk that you saw, the space is easily large enough for a couple, 3 employees, and so that desk is cloud schedulable by my staff. So I've had employees that are booking that desk and coming and working with me as the pandemic allows.
All right, one last question on the
Yeah.
space. How is it heated?
So I have a reverse cycle split unit heat pump in here, and I'm actually using a soft start system on it. So it's very, very energy efficient. When we built the space out, when I bought the building, they delivered the building completely assembled. It just came in on a truck. We dropped it down onto a slab, and it was just bare studs. So we insulated it with some, and I've got a video series that I'm about to publish on it. We insulated it with some insulation that is, um, it's a type of woven fiber that is significantly more insulative. And then all of the technology, everything is LEDs. That reverse cycle heat pump uses a fraction of the power. So really, I was kind of modeling in small scale what I would like to do in the next iteration of Envision's offices.
That is amazing. And I think what you're sharing with us in a very circuitous way is that, the environment that you're working from and in really makes a big difference in terms of, getting your head into the right place, feeling, inspired and motivated to be able to deliver fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, innovative ways of approaching old problems. And I think you've really captured it beautifully as a metaphor, just showing us the space.
Well, I thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I think about innovation all the time, and innovation can be big, it can be small, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But one of the things I play around with in my head is like, really fundamentally rethinking things that we've always done the same way. And so I was thinking about, well, geez, if your entire executive team is going to be forced to work from home, when I built this, like I said, it was dropped off fully assembled. And so it occurred to me like, hey, if I tracked what it cost to build this thing, how expensive is it really if you wanted to build half a dozen of these and drop them off for key management members so that everybody on their property has, a building to work from. The I know nobody thinks that way, but it is a possibility. It's something worth considering.
Okay, so having done that, let's jump right into the matter at hand and give us your best thoughts and ideas and what you've learned over the course of the last 18 months or so about really how to use technology to innovate.
Absolutely. All right. So I came with some things today to show you guys in a slide deck here. But first of all, I was already introduced, but I'm Todd Knapp, and these are all different ways that you can reach out to me if you're interested in continuing the discussion. We are a Microsoft partner, and Microsoft's a central solution for us. So Microsoft Teams is always the best way to get me. We're open federated. You can just put that email address into any Teams deployment and get me anytime. Um, there's also reachable on LinkedIn and YouTube and lots of other vehicles. So I put them all up on the screen for you. I gave you the 50,000-foot view a few minutes ago, but the specifics are, I want to talk about the innovation mindset. What you have to be, if you're looking to build an organization that is genuinely innovative, what do you need to be thinking about? How do you need to be conceptualizing that? I want to talk about what culture of innovation means to you and to your business, and then how to set the stage for innovation to occur. So that your people are able to deliver for you. Because honestly, and I say this all the time, we've got a training division at our business, and one of the things we say about training is that training unlocks talent. Most of your employees really want to do great things for your business. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want to identify as being innovative. So when you give them the skills, when you give them the tools, they will do great things for you. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to set the stage for that. So just so you know how I see the world, and probably in the conversation about our building here, you may have picked up on some of this, but I am a technologist. But at the center of everything that I am a humanist. And I find that one of the challenges of my industry in technology is that we're not always great at remembering that there are human beings behind the keyboard, and that the human beings behind the keyboard don't want to be technologists. They want to do the job they were hired to do. They want to be accountants and doctors, and they want to ship packages, and they want to sell product. They want to do whatever their job is, right? So in technology, one of the challenges we have as an industry is trying to figure out how to take what we do and convert it into English and speak human and enable people. But so the lens that I come through, I really believe in culture. I'm fascinated by how people make decisions and how data impacts that stuff. So I'm a humanist. I'm also a consumer, like all of you, right? So I am somebody who shops at Amazon.com and who has a smartphone that has an app store. I am a business owner. So I understand the challenges that go along with trying to compete in a modern and changing economy. And then, I think all of us at some level are explorers. Me in particular, I when I'm not doing this, I'm also a scuba instructor. I've traveled all over the world to go diving. I'm a sailor. I like being outside. I like that moment when I can experience something that only a handful of people in the world have ever experienced. I like being amazed by what the world has to offer. And so that's how I see the world. That's the lens through which I view the world. And I think part of getting into the conversation of culture of innovation is first sitting down and asking yourself, what lens do you view the world through? Because those are the things that will color the way you think about innovation. And it's also the things that you might need to be aware of so that you can step out of those specific niches and maybe think a little bigger. And so I'm always trying to figure out, okay, what part of my personality does this idea come from? And is there a different way to think about it? So what do we mean by innovation? I think you kind of have to start there. If you're going to build a culture, you got to know what the culture is about, right? So this is about seeing beyond whatever the problem is that you're facing, or the opportunity that you're facing, or the process that you're looking at, and finding what the bigger solution is. And then looking at creative methods that can be applied to capitalize on it, right? So that's probably the only slide I'm actually going to read to you. I don't like reading slides to people, but this is an important thing because it's funny when I ask technologists, what's the biggest IT conference in our industry? I always get, some common answers. I'll get, oh, Microsoft Ignite or, Dreamforce, the Salesforce conference, or, and there's 30, 40,000 people at those conferences or more. Um, and Ignite actually, now that it's digital, has been larger than that. But for a long time, the biggest actual gathering of technologists, I should say. I was going to say professionals. They're not all professionals, technologists. The biggest gathering is actually something called Maker Faire. And very rarely do I ever get an IT or a technology person that says, oh, what about Maker Faire? Maker Faire is a gathering of people from all industries and all walks of life who are creating things in their garages and basements and living rooms and in their home offices. They're inventing, they're innovating, and they are not trained as engineers or computer consultants or any of those technical spaces. They're just average people doing amazing things. And the great thing about those people is that because they weren't professionally trained in innovation, they don't recognize that there are boundaries to what's possible. Nobody ever said the formula for fluid mechanics in a static environment is this. And so these are the boundaries, these are the rules. They don't know that. So they're willing to try anything, which is why we've had such an incredible pace of new technology hitting the market in recent years, because the barrier to entry to innovate has come down, and the average person that is innovating is more a dreamer than a professional. And so great things are happening as a result. So the question is, how do we bring that to our businesses? Well, innovation always results in value. And so let me tell you what that means. You can innovate and fail, but that doesn't mean that you didn't produce value, right? It's what's the best way to create a light bulb? That old chestnut about finding 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Innovation always results in value. The process of exploring brings us new opportunity. Innovation is very different than talking about differentiation. Okay, and I'll just build that whole thing there. So I hear people talking all the time incorrectly in my mind about innovation when what they really mean is differentiation, right? They want to say we're different than our competitors, so we're innovative. That's not entirely true. Differentiation is more about incremental change. It's about looking at something and saying, okay, here's the process n+1, a slight improvement to it is differentiates us from our competition. That's not really the same thing as innovation. Innovation is about that reconsideration of the entire process. Is the process even necessary, right? So one of my best examples, or my favorite examples of this, is the 10% 90% discussion. I had the opportunity once to attend a conference and listen to a keynote that Elon Musk gave, and he was talking about Tesla and SpaceX, and he was talking about innovation versus invention. What he said was, invention is only 10% of innovation. The other 90% is the reapplication of technology or process to produce a new result. And so that was very profound for me, because for a long time up to that point, I thought of innovation and I thought, oh, you have to create something new. That's actually not true. It had never occurred to me to articulate it this way, but really, the story he told, and I'll just very high level paraphrase it because I will murder it if I try to quote it exactly, was when they were creating the Tesla the first time, his mandate to his engineers was, I want a vehicle that will go 300 miles on battery alone. And so his engineers came back and said, we don't think it's possible. In order to go 300 miles, you have to be really light, but in order to be a vehicle, you have to be really strong. The two are juxtaposed to each other. And so what he did is he put everybody together and they went and visited an aircraft manufacturer. And he said, look, the technology exists already. If you want to know how to build something light and strong, talk to an airplane manufacturer. And that's how Tesla ended up with an aluminum body frame for their vehicles. They didn't invent it, they reapplied a technology that was being used elsewhere. I did a presentation just like this in 2018, which doesn't seem that long ago, but especially given world events in the last 24 months, it's forever. It may as well be a millennia ago. So in 2018, when I was asked about the mandate for innovation in business, I said, well, there are kind of three sorts of companies: market disruptors, market leaders, and market followers. And do you want to be? All three are valid. Which one do you want to be? And we talked about rapid growth versus incremental growth, and relevance versus obsolescence. Today, I would argue that the mandate for innovation in business is the new economy that we are seeing as a function of the changes we've experienced in the last 24 months. We have a world now of hybrid workforce and modern workforce, something that we've advocated for many years at Envision. But the employees that are available to us today, we've all been following the supply chain problems, the employee availability challenges, the great resignation, as they refer to it. The mandate for innovation now is that if we are not finding creative ways to improve the lives of the people who work for us, deliver products to customers that maybe accessed our services or goods in traditional ways previously, if we're not finding new and better ways to do these things, guess what? We are not able to attract and retain good talent for our organizations. We're not able to compete against the smaller, more agile businesses that are emerging out of the ashes of what used to be. So the mandate for innovation today is as much about survival in the new hybrid economy as it is about anything else, right? So I'm discovering and continually seeing, as I've been watching across our clients, we have clients in almost all 50 states, and we've seen some of them during the pandemic have grown tremendously. Others are really struggling to pivot. And then we've also found a lot of smaller, newer companies that are displacing very established businesses. That's what's going on right now. That's the mandate for innovation in business, is survival in the new hybrid economy and thriving and morale, right? So when asked recently, in a different context, I was asked what I thought the biggest driver for innovation really is. Somebody in the audience raised their hand and said, well, you need innovation to have market disruption. And market disruption is caused by innovation, and market disruption also causes in innovation. And so what they were trying to say was, you have an established industry, somebody innovates and finds a new way to do something, they come into the marketplace, they change the expectations in the marketplace, and then everybody else has to innovate to catch up, right? Or follow suit. I pushed back a little bit and I said, I think you have to think bigger than that. You have to go further back. And what I meant was that it's really consumerization that is the causal link here. It's what's changed the culture here in our country and globally, in fact, and that culture shift is what's enabling market disruption as a function of innovation. So I'll give you an example, okay? Amazon.com. We all shop on Amazon.com. Now, before Amazon, we would order something online. Maybe we would get a notification that something had been shipped by the person we bought it from. But that was, if you go back just 5, even 8 years, that was more the rarity than the standard. Is you'd get a notice from some, but not from all. And then what would happen is the product would show up after 3 to 5 days, right? And do you remember if you go back 15, 20 years, the ads, for product, and it would say, allow 3 to 6 weeks for delivery, right? Now with Amazon, I know exactly when my product's going to arrive. And in fact, not so long ago, I had gotten a notice from Amazon. It actually came up on my Echo. My Echo said your product is about to be delivered. And I needed to run out and do something. I was meeting someone down the street for something. And I opened my Amazon app, looked at my orders, clicked on the tracking. I could see where the delivery driver was in that moment. I knew that they were about 15 minutes away from my house. And so I thought, I've got a couple of minutes. And I ran down the road. I did what I needed to do. I came back. I pulled in. The Amazon driver pulled in right behind me. As a consumer, that has reset my expectations in the business world. What I expect now from a partner that's shipping me product, and I run a technology company, we have a lot of product coming in through Envision. What I expect from them in terms of real-time transparency and visibility to their process and expectations is very different than what it used to be, driven largely by consumerization of technology. My mobile device put the power in my hands, and now my cultural expectations are different in the business world as a result. That opens the door for someone to disrupt the market of one of my partners, right? If I've got 3 vendors, they're all doing the same thing the same way, they've been doing it the same way for 25 years. As a consumer, I'm seeing other companies, because I interact with them all the time, doing it better. I become frustrated with the partners that I do have in the business world, and now a new company starts up from zero, adopts those same technologies that Amazon uses early on. I'm very likely to shift my business to that newcomer, even though they're not as established. Where in the old days, those companies that I was already doing business with could have trusted that the incumbency they had in the marketplace was going to protect them. That's no longer true. So, how do you establish a culture that leads to innovation? That's a tough question. So, not so long ago, I was giving a presentation again on this kind of topic. I talk about this a lot. And I asked everybody in the audience, there were probably 70 people in the audience or so, maybe 100. And I said, do you believe that, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you believe that your employees like to identify themselves as being innovative. If you or your employees like to identify themselves as being innovative. And about 45, 46 people raised their hands. So about 2/3 of the audience put their hands up. And then I said, well, okay, so like 2/3 of you guys. So I said, I don't want to make any assumptions. Raise your hand if you believe that your employees or you do not want to be identifying as innovative. And I got a couple of hands that went up. And so, there was a significant population that wasn't sure how to answer the question. But what I took away from it was most people would like to be able to call themselves innovative, right? And so then I asked a second question. I said, hey, raise your hand if you believe that you and your employees just love it when things change, right? You like change. And predictably, I only got like 4 hands. And so just, playing devil's advocate, I said, okay, no assumptions, raise your hand if you believe that people in your organization don't, or that your organization itself resists change. And a whole bunch of hands went up. And so I said, do you see the juxtaposition here? You want to identify as being innovative, but you don't like change. That's a fundamental problem, but it's also an understandable problem because fear of change leads to failure. And let me tell you, like I said, I'm a humanist. I'm a study of human behavior and the human brain. Your brain is a phenomenal anomaly detector because in early evolution of humans, we needed to be very aware of that cracking of a stick that might be a predator that was out to get us. And so our brain is evolved specifically for survival purposes to look for the thing that is different in the environment. And so we naturally have a fight or flight reaction to things that are different, things that change, right? And so it's natural that we would see change as a threat from an evolutionary point of view. Culturally speaking, you know, the reality is that change is and culture is a barrier sometimes because we have, what I like to call cultural inertia. We have organizations that are established, they're successful, they've done the same thing the same way for a very long time. And I tell my team all the time, the words, "This is how we've always done it," is your fastest path to failure. It's your fastest path to declining market share. How we've always done it is irrelevant. How could we do it is the question. But that needs to be a top-down conversation. I liked this stat, right? This was something that was written in a Gartner forecast. In 2020, the amount of change the average employee could absorb before fatigue was cut in half compared to 2019. Um, Obvious reasons, right? But change is hard, and we all just went through and are still going through some pretty major change culturally as a community. And figuring out now, I had early on in the pandemic, I was doing a presentation, and I honestly don't remember who it was for, but it was on the subject of hybrid workforce. And I had said, you're going to find, and I wholesale expect to find, that there are established companies with great management teams where there are managers who have been wildly successful for a long time, and we're going to start discovering that they are actually not effective anymore because they have no idea how to manage a hybrid workforce. They're not prepared for the hybrid world. And so managers that were generally considered to be excellent managers may struggle some, right? And so that change has been really difficult for everybody. So change is essential. It's essential for innovation. And so, one of the things that, this from a Harvard Business Review, 58% of people, you have to reinvent every 3 years or less. I can tell you that in my industry in technology, we are continually reinventing our business. And innovation is closely linked to change. So I put together these 4 or 5 quotes for a reason for you. Let's go back to the beginning and just look at the titles, right? Fear of the unknown leads to failure. Culture can be a barrier. Change can be hard on employees, but change is essential, and change is closely linked to innovation. So these are the facts. If we know those are the facts, now the question is, what do we do about it? And so one of the things that I frequently will tell my customers when we're talking about modernizing systems or processes is, listen, every customer I've ever encountered has had at some point something new that they deployed that fell on its face and didn't work. And so one of the things that we talk about when we talk about adoption of technology is, listen, people don't resist change. They resist being changed. Nobody wants to have the cheese moved. Nobody wants to get up in the morning and find out that they can no longer do their job the way that they used to do it, that, without any notice or warning or any input, that all of a sudden we're telling them, hey, you got to do this completely differently. And worst case scenario is that your colleague has gotten very good at doing what they used to do the way they used to do it. They would become efficient in that model, and now they have to adapt. And that moment, that transitional moment in adaptation, is not an efficient moment. When you first change, all of a sudden, what used to take 2 minutes can take you 10 minutes. And so in the end, if it's well adopted, it might take 1 minute, but you don't know that until you get there. So engaging our colleagues, engaging our employees in the process of change, making them stakeholders in innovation is how we gain adoption. It's how we start to build culture, right? So things you can do. First of all, we got to set the stage. We need internal marketing to our people about the changes that are coming and why we want them and why they're exciting. We need people that were in the community of employees engaged in the development of the new. And so, I can't tell you how many messages I see from senior executive teams to employees where there's, literally the CEO saying, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. And it's just a big quote from the CEO. And that's, the boss says we have to do this, so we have to do it whether we like it or not. On the other hand, some of our customers have had employees help and facilitate in the development of the new. And so the communication includes quotes from those people, their peers, saying, hey, this is going to be great for us. So setting the stage, building trust, acknowledging opportunity, that's one of the ways that we build culture. Transparent and safe communication. Ideas are a currency. And one of the problems that we, I think, understandably as humans face is that we look at ideas as sometimes challenges to the established, right? I set a process, somebody has an idea about how to do it better. It might feel like an attack on me because I developed that process. But if we create a culture where all ideas are welcomed, where anybody can speak up, where nobody is going to be put down or shut down because of their idea, where all things are at least considered, then more ideas come to the surface. There's in every business, there are some things that are challenges that nobody really wants to talk about. I actually was working with a customer very recently who made a big investment in a piece of software. It's the wrong piece of software. Everybody knows it's the wrong piece of software. Nobody wants to talk about it, right? Because it just leads to confrontation. But right now, that organization is not innovating. They're not changing their business processes. Nobody is speaking up with good ideas because this thing is in the way. You've got to be willing to have the hard discussion in a safe way for your team. Let the monsters out of the closet so that we can get past them and move on. Challenging convention and embracing change. And this is actually my all-time favorite statement. I use it all the time at Envision. Reconsider the truths that you hold most dear. I wake up every morning and I try to look in the mirror and assume that everything I've learned up to this point could be wrong. That today's the day I'm going to learn something that displaces something that I believed to be an absolute, right? Like this office. Do my employees, do we need a corporate headquarters, or could we build modular office pods that are cloud enabled that we can drop off at any employee's house that wants one, right? Some of our employees have a great home office. Some of our people were working in their kitchens, at kitchen tables, or in their living rooms. For those people, couldn't I just build something, put it on a truck, drop it off, and give them the ability to engage with us more meaningfully? The idea that our employees have to be in front of us has been clearly disproven during the pandemic. But I can't tell you how many companies I know who are still talking about when things get back to normal, right? Being willing to reconsider the most fundamental things is at the heart of facilitating innovation. And we have to lead by example. It has to be a top-down conversation, right? Vision should come from here. Culture should come from here. Ideas come from down here, right? So we want the ideas to flow bottom up, the culture and the vision to flow top down. And that's how we create a great culture that facilitates innovation. You cannot underestimate the value of your human resources organization when it comes to culture and innovation. If your people feel, and this is an old study, of course, but it's a relevant study, right? When people feel protected and cared for, they want to protect and care for the person that cared for them, right? So if your organization is creating ways to think about wellness and manage the wellness of its employees, leveraging, and we're doing this now for a couple of clients and for ourselves. We're using technologies like Microsoft Viva to look at creating, focus time for our employees, because we're such a busy organization, people get stuck in the now, in the trenches. So we are looking at technology that deliberately finds empty blocks of time on their calendars and blocks it off for focus time for you as an employee to stop and take a breath and, you know what, open up YouTube and watch that video you've been wanting to watch about that new technology that we don't even work on today, right? Take some time to do some meditation or mindfulness exercises, right? These things are important. And when the employee base knows that the company cares about its wellness, when the employee base knows that we are trying to protect them and care for them, they want to care for and protect us. We cannot underestimate the value of our human resources teams when it comes to creating a culture of innovation, right? The person that is stressed, that is maxed out, that is not feeling protected, that is not feeling safe, that person is now worried about the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy, survival, right? The person who feels cared for and is rested and is in a great mood and is ready to get to work and do something great, that person's now at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, and they're trying to refine and improve, and they're creative and energetic. And creativity and energy leads to what? Ideas. Ideas become innovation when we embrace them and support them. When we think about empowerment, and one of the things I say all the time is, everything I've told you up to this point is all about empowering your employees. When we think about empowerment, we tend to think about these things. And I typed empowerment into a Google browser, and I went to an image search, and this was the image that I found. And it had, leadership and motivation and mentoring, skill, achievement, training, all good words, right? Well, I argue that there are two very important missing things here. First of all, tools. They need the right tools. I can have all of the other six things and be standing in front of a pile of black walnut. And I'm a woodworker also. I like to do woodworking. I like working with my hands. Right? I can be standing in front of a pile of black walnut. If I have no tools at all, it's probably still going to be a pile of black walnut when I leave. I need tools. I need the things that help me manipulate and shape my environment. The other thing that I need, especially in the modern world, is security. And I can't emphasize this one enough. When people talk about innovation, they forget about security almost every time. And so our goal here is to empower our users so that we get to innovation. And that means a few things. It means we need them to be geo-independent. They have to be able to work from anywhere in the world. The hybrid work model that was forced on us now needs to be fostered by us, because we figured out how to work from home. I'm not sure that means we figured out how to be geo-independent, right? There's still some distance to travel there. We need digital fluency. Our users need to be trained. They need to understand the technology. If they knew how to use it, they'd do great things for us. Most of them know the 10% that they interact with. We need to focus more on elevating the level of skill, upskilling our people, right? Security, not constraint. So when we hear security, what do you think of? Handcuffs, right? IT is locking us down. We're not going to be able to do anything. I want the kind of security that liberates data, that gives people freedom, that allows people to be portable. Security that follows us and is associated with the context of me as a user, not necessarily with the specifics of the data and where it lives, right? I want people that are efficient and agile, which means I need automation. I need better workflow apps. I need universal access to data, cloud-centric technologies. And I need to be strategic and data-powered. And frankly, if you've got, these are in an order, right? If you've got geo-independence, digital fluency, security, efficiency, and agility, then you can think about strategy and being data-powered. You really can't do those things until the ones above it are done. So you cannot innovate without good security and tool sets, because the risk is that if you give people the ability to create, that they are actually going to create security vulnerabilities for you, which you don't want. So we need to do some things to secure our corporate environments. And let me tell you, I believe that we are on the precipice of the largest spate cybersecurity data breaches and data leakage announcements that we've ever seen. As bad as it's been for so long, I think it's about to get a lot worse. During the pandemic, I know lots and lots of companies that sent employees home, and some employees weren't issued company computers, and they literally emailed themselves data from the company into their Google Drives, into their Google email addresses, put things on thumb drives. Other people brought their home laptops and copied things to it and brought it home. We've had this unbelievable sprawl of information as a function of the pandemic. And so now we got to kind of pick up the pieces and put Humpty Dumpty back together again. The first step there is adopting something called zero trust security standards. Zero trust security standards are going to allow you to create that kind of security that happens without your user even knowing, right? And so that facilitates them doing things like collaborating with customers outside and collaborating internally and innovating without potentially leaking data. We need to elevate our employees' security posture, and we need to validate our security with effective testing. So for all the people that are on the call, I'm betting that a lot of you are using Microsoft 365, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to make sure it's been said. If you are using Microsoft 365, Zero Trust is not a Microsoft technology. Microsoft 365 has a great architecture for implementing Zero Trust, but Zero Trust is an industry standard, not a Microsoft standard. But here's the catch. If you're using Office 365, that's not the same as using Microsoft 365. And Microsoft 365 is not by default Zero Trust. So if you've asked your IT people, how's our security? And they said, oh, we're on Office 365, we're all good. That's not necessarily true. You probably have some work to do. At its heart, because some of you may be saying, what's zero trust? Identity is at the top of the zero trust conversation, right? So it's a important thing to understand that we need to know who our users are, what device they're on, what applications they're using, look carefully at their network infrastructure and data, and be able to interact across all those platforms seamlessly with our security. Zero Trust pulls all of that into one field of vision. The secured user shares and collaborates freely. Their data is liberated. They adapt to security risk. They don't need to know much of anything to be secured because the security follows the information and follows the context of the user. And great security is obvious to external resources. They can see the email coming in is encrypted. They can see that the file transfer is secured. They can see that the sharing of data is secured. And so they are more comfortable doing business with your organization. Right? Your IT team needs to be a partner, not an obstacle. If you're saying, can we, and you're hearing no, then we need a culture of yes. Because if you ask me, can we, my answer is always yes. It's yes. To do that, we need to do the following things, right? But I can make almost anything possible, right? And we need a culture of shared responsibility for safety. It's our job to protect our employees so that they want to protect us. Creativity and innovation require freedom to experiment and collaborate. We can have the culture, we can have the tools and the training. We need freedom to experiment and collaborate. Most of you are probably on some form of Microsoft technology. A lot of us are using Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Planner, SharePoint, OneDrive, Power BI, Automate, Power Apps, all the things you see on the bottom of the screen. These are all tools available to you, probably in the licensing you already own. And if only your people knew how to effectively use all those things, they could create new workflow and new processes. They could take things that were previously done manually and automate them through robotic process automation. They could take gaps in systems that you have and create new applications for you that fill those voids, that make you more effective and able to do more business with the same overhead, thus driving more of your revenue to the bottom line. Creativity and innovation require freedom. If your IT organization is locking down your tenants so that users are unable to create their own teams, or they can't spin up their own SharePoint libraries, if they can't create their own analytics, if they can't create their own automations, that's not security, that's limitation. You can allow freedom with zero trust and secure that freedom. So I'm not telling you Teams doesn't need governance. Of course it needs governance, but there's a difference between governance and being constrained, right? So I want groups of people to say, oh, you know what, there's a better way to do this. I bet if we just took a couple of hours once a week, we could solve for this. You know what, I'm going to create a team. I'm going to add you guys all to it. Let's set up a planner and put together a plan to solve this problem. And, probably need some automation, and maybe we'll need to pull someone in for that. But boy, we can do something better. That's what we want. And if you don't think your organization is there, it's time to make a phone call to somebody. There are opportunities to innovate across 4 segments in general when it comes to business: personal innovation, departmental, corporate, and customer facing. Personal innovation. There's an old story that you guys probably all heard about a guy who was hired by a software company and outsourced the bulk of his job to India. And all of his work was getting done. It was getting done well and ahead of schedule. And he was spending most of his time playing video games. And when his company found out about it, he was fired. Well, from a security point of view, maybe that was the right thing to do. I don't know. But what this person really was doing was finding a new way to get their job done to manage their work-life balance. It's an extreme example. I don't consider that innovation. I consider that crafty. But personal innovation, I have a customer who has an employee that has a job moving data from an Excel spreadsheet into a very legacy application that doesn't really support, it's actually a mainframe application, doesn't really support cut and paste between the PC. That user called me to ask me, hey, I have an idea. I saw a video online. Can I use a robotic process automation to copy the data from here and paste it into there? Or rather re-enter it. You can't cut and paste between it, but can I re-enter the data into the mainframe and use an RPA to do that? And I said, absolutely. And I gave him some pointers, and all of a sudden this company, which processes medical billing, was able to essentially take half of an employee's job and reapply that time to new things for the business because the RPA is now doing that work. Personal innovation. Departmental innovation. What are the processes we do as a department that maybe if we change them, we could do something better for the customer, or we could gain efficiency, or we could do more than our department has traditionally been responsible for? Right? So we think about innovation, oftentimes we think about the corporate level and it's going to require a company-wide change. That's not true. We can innovate in small ways, right? Corporate level innovation, I think, is pretty obvious. That's going to be new products, new services, rethinking how we deliver existing products and services. I had a company that I was talking to once that makes a particular widget. I got to be careful with this because I don't want to give out too much information about it. But they sell the widget, and my question in a meeting with them was, what if we didn't sell the widget? What if we gave the widget away? And we took the data that the widget is able to capture and we sold access to that. What if we monitored the widget for availability, replaced it proactively when it was starting to have problems, and sold access to the information that the widget produces? That'd be a completely different way to monetize the product this company makes. And that spurred a very big conversation. Customer-facing innovation are the things that you see Amazon doing all the time for you. That's the ones where they're saying, hey, here's a new kind of plug you can put in that will automate things in your home. Here's your ability to have real-time tracking. Customer-facing innovation, the fly trap of customer-facing innovation is that we end up believing that that's the only way that innovation has an impact on the business. But as you can see, it's a much bigger discussion. So I had promised I would try and keep this to roughly 50 minutes. I'm within a couple of slides of being wrapped up here, and then I thought maybe do a little Q&A. Some key takeaways from today. First of all, like I said, innovation and culture, that's a top-down proposition. At a senior level, you've got to want it, and you've got to want to recreate your business to support it. How we interact and enable with our teams drives their innovation. And, as I sat here thinking about it when I was preparing for this, I thought, wow, we need enablement to innovate. We need culture to innovate. What do I need to get to enablement? I need security. I need tools. I need training. I need to encourage that. I need that cultural piece, right? And so enablement and cultural change is how you get to innovation. Innovation is not going to happen because you give somebody the tools. It's not going to happen because you throw money at it. It's not going to happen because you've told people you want them to innovate. You have to create a culture where your people want change. And I can tell you that I have, like any manager, things I do well, things I don't do well. And I have things at Envision that we do really well, things we don't do really well. What I know about Envision that we do well is that when things aren't changing at Envision, I start getting phone calls from employees who are stressed out and upset. They feel like we're stuck in a rut. We've been doing the same thing for too long. We need to change, right? Because we've spent 20 years building a culture of change at Envision. We have people whose biggest frustration is that they are not able to directly make a change. And when I see that, what I try to do? I try to get out of the way. I try to be like, oh, okay, go for it. Let me get out of the way, go and do this, and then tell me how it goes. Right? What do you need to make it possible? I try to enable them. I want to encourage people at Envision to come to me and say, and this is what I used to tell them in the early days of the business, I don't care. All I want to do is I want to have fun. I want to be great at what I do. I want to have a positive impact, and I want to make money doing those things. And so I used to tell people, if you can prove to me that we'll have fun, be great, have a positive impact, and make money, we can rip every server out of the server room, fill it with ovens, and become pastry chefs. I don't care what we do. I just want us to do it well, right? So enablement, culture of change, that's how we get to innovation. So wrapping up my thoughts, let's talk about some forward motion, some things you can do coming out of this conversation. First of all, get in touch with a subject matter expert in process automation. It doesn't need to be me. Call in. I mean, I saw in the feed for Providence Chamber, this is something they've been talking about a lot with several organizations. There are good companies out there that can talk to you about what the technologies are that are emerging that might apply to your business. They can meet with you and your team and talk about things like automation and application integration and building innovative solutions. You just have to want to have that meeting, right? Second, I know it's a tactical thing, but take the time to engage in an external review of your security, your cloud tool sets, and your employees' security posture, because you really can't innovate until you lay that foundation. We already talked about that. And finally, get strategic about technology and culture. Do you know how many companies I meet that are running Microsoft products? They're using Teams, but they're using Zoom for most of their other meetings. It's for their externally facing meetings. Now, okay, two different platforms, one's fully capable of doing what the other is doing. This isn't a conversation about Zoom versus Teams. Whatever your tools of choice are, make sure they connect, make sure that they represent an ecosystem of tool sets that interact and exchange data, right? Let's not just be arbitrary about picking the technology we use. There should be strategy behind it, and strategy that is being driven by what we want our culture to be. So I'll leave you with that and say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. I hope you've got something out of this. Stay in touch. All my contact info is up on the screen again inside a Microsoft Teams frame, because that really is the best way to get in touch with me.
Thank you, Todd. That was an amazing masterclass, and my head is spinning with concepts and ideas and frameworks, and it was a lot. And I'm glad you summed it up, with the end in terms of forward-looking things. And I think the slide that I really enjoyed, and maybe you can go back to it, was the one where you determined you laid out the four levels of innovation on the personal level, on the departmental level,
Yeah,
corporate, and also customer facing level. So I think there's a lot of grist there that in the remaining minutes, maybe you could, revisit those four buckets and maybe, throw out some additional ways that people can sort of, get their head moving in the right direction on each of those four.
sure. So personal innovation and departmental, I mean, I actually really those first three, there are some basic tools out in the world that make this really easy. Microsoft Power Automate is one of them. If you're a Microsoft customer, if you're using 365 today, you probably already have Power Automate. And I think it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's in almost every licensing combination that Microsoft sells now. What those tools do for you is they let you you can actually connect applications that otherwise wouldn't talk. You can automate some of your personal workflows. So like if you get an email, let's say you're in an organization where orders come in as PDFs attached to an email from partners, right? When you can actually set up an automation in Power Automate that looks for those emails, files the emails for you, takes the attachment, automatically saves it into a SharePoint library, and sends a Teams message to the accounting department to let them know that, hey, you need to process this order. And you could make that entire automation just point and click, no coding required, none of that stuff. You just literally pick out the applications you want, point and click, put the thing together, or have your IT organization do that for you. Departmentally speaking, there and at the corporate level, those two, one of the things that I really love is the business process workflow planner. And what that tool does is you say, hey, there are 5 people responsible for customer engagement in our organization or product launch, whatever the use case is. You can install a piece of software on all their computers, and then you can begin, and then you can say, okay, guys, we're going to do this process front to back, right? So person number 1 does the 5 things they do. Person number 2 does the 10 things they do. What the tool does is it tracks everything that's being done, and it creates a map of that process. And then it looks at the areas of repetitive task where artificial intelligence or machine learning or robotic process automation could streamline it, and makes recommendations for how to change that process. At a corporate level, I tend to overlap corporate level and customer facing to some extent. That's now, mission and strategy is, okay, what are the products that we provide? Why do people do business with us? And what are the things that we could do that would either, certainly want to improve that, but that would fundamentally change that experience in a way that we've never seen in our industry, right? So an example of that in my industry is that, we've for years in IT, customers will sign up for a project. They get assigned a project manager. The project manager is managing people underneath them, and the customer's interaction is with the person that sold them the project and the project manager. So if they have a question about the project, they ask the PM, the PM goes and asks the engineers, and it goes back and forth. That's the way our industry at large has worked for a long time. We had said at Envision, well, why can't we just use tools like Microsoft Teams to directly connect customers with the team doing the deployment, so that we want the project coordinator there to help keep the trains running on time, but we want total transparency between our delivery resources and the people that are consuming them, so that there's just instant connection between them all the time. Right? It's a very different way to think about project engagement. Fusion teams are another example of that, where we bring multidisciplinary skill sets together to solve a problem, even if some of those disciplines aren't necessarily anticipated as being needed. But instead, because having the person in the room that sees the world from a totally different perspective may lead to ideas that nobody ever considered before. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. I hope it does. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
That
There she is. Hi, Laurie.
I'm here. So I would wonder, Todd, if there needs to be an icon before the personal innovation that really talks about, how the person himself, herself, their self can get their own head into a place where they are able to look at their own jobs and be able to um, think of new ways to innovate, to be able to, you have the personal innovation as it pertains to the individual's own, scope of work, et cetera. But what if, what do you need to do before that one to get
Um,
yourself to a place where you can be open to it, where you can access it?
I love it when you ask. I love it when you ask me questions, and like so many other things, let's do it on the fly, right? You
Yep.
said put an icon before it.
Yep.
All right, so move all this stuff to the right, and I'm going to quickly find an icon like super fast. And I'm going to say that what you're asking about is professional mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
Is
Like,
getting
yeah.
yourself into that space where you're ready to consider new ideas.
or you've you're ready, but also you're looking in the right places. You're stimulating your mind in the right way so that you can do the four things to the right. Can't just like say, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to do it without, soaking yourself in, immersing yourself in what this really means. And, sitting, it's a hard process, I would imagine, right?
It really is. And so this professional mindfulness icon brought to you by the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce.
I love it. It's good.
No, you know what? I like it, and I may even add that permanently to my deck. I mean, so one of the things that we have done many times with customers is facilitate brainstorming sessions where we bring the entire organization or group of people into a room. We map out on a big board, the way that we do things today, and then we stop and we take a breath and we start saying, okay, let's imagine for a moment that the company didn't exist and we were going to build something from scratch that solved for X. What are all the different ways in which we could do that? Anything. Don't worry about what it costs. Don't even worry about if the technology exists to do it. What are all the ways that we could consider that problem? And so we've done, professional mindfulness exercises. We didn't call it that, but essentially, that reconsideration of what is known to be true many times with customers. And, I think that exercise of just getting people in the room and letting them know that we're even thinking that way. Usually the best ideas that come out of those happen 3 days after is we have the session and then, some things come out that are cool, but then people go home and they're sitting on their couch and they're just kind of noodling over this thing they did today. And they're like, boy, I kind of missed an opportunity. I should have said this. Those really great ideas are usually a couple days behind the meeting.
What what else can people do to get their brains, stimulated outside of, the workspace? A number of years ago, I remember listening to a very successful CEO saying what he does, and this was again, in a more predominated world where he would go to, you know, the big bookstore and he would find, you know, 30 random magazines of things that he never even would consider reading. And he would just, find, the craziest 30 magazines and just buy them all and then sit there and just, put the, float the ideas, look at the ads, look at the content, look at the whatever, just immerse himself in a completely different language and subject and genre. And that's where he helped to put his brain in a place where it could iterate ideas and he could think differently because he's reading, motorcycles, and he's reading, about ballet or, deep verticals in very discrete areas that he himself didn't have expertise in. So
Yeah.
I'm
I'll,
looking for an idea like that.
well, I've got several for you because these are things I recommend all the time to customers. Number one of the best big think conferences that happens every year, and I'm not saying this because I'm a partner. I in part became a partner because of this. Is Microsoft Ignite. It's a free event. It's now digital. You can sign up for it. Costs you nothing, and you do not need to be a technology professional. If you did only one thing there and spent 1 hour at Microsoft Ignite, it would be for the keynote session. Where the keynote we had at the beginning of last year, they introduced the metaverse, and they literally had James Cameron talking about his trip to the bottom of the ocean in fully augmented reality virtual space and demonstrating what the future of meetings might be like, where some of the people that are in the room are holograms. And this isn't like Star Trek technology. This exists now. And Microsoft demoed it live. And it was hard not to walk away from that and be like, holy cow, it's unbelievable what's possible. They demo how big organizations are this year they showed off how one very large company is onboarding new employees 100% in this, doing it entirely in virtual reality. Their new employees go and they meet in a meta space in alt space VR, and they literally walk around in full virtual reality and meet each other and get trained by their new managers. And it happens in a online virtual campus. You don't have to know anything about technology to be amazed by the live demos. But this year at Ignite, I actually attended in virtual reality, and I got the very first lead Envision's ever gotten by being in a room that had 30 or 40 other people in virtual avatars walking around, and I struck up a conversation with somebody and found someone who needed help, and we are doing business with them now. Probably not the last lead I'll ever get in virtual reality, but I'll always remember it as the first. So attend Microsoft Ignite. The keynotes are unreal. Second, I cannot overstate, the value of YouTube when it comes to what's possible. If there are some channels that I follow several. Microsoft Mechanics is a favorite of mine. Microsoft 365 is a good one, but there are others like Vertasium. Vertasium is a YouTube channel, and all this guy does every day is talk about what's possible in the world today with technology. I often type in coolest new innovations of 2022, and you'll find dozens of videos of there's an entire industry of flying cars right now. I mean, there's a big industry around and a race to get to the first production ready personal flying vehicle, all expansion of drone technology. Metaverse, you guys may have heard Facebook changing its name to Meta. That's because they didn't invent the metaverse, but the metaverse is coming soon to a theater near all of us. And in fact, in Microsoft Teams meetings, in just a few months, you'll be able to attend as an avatar of yourself if you don't want to be physically on camera. And the technology tracks your facial expressions so that even though you're an avatar, we can see your human responses to the things being said. So look for those things that really challenge, and expand your vision of the world. They're so readily available right now.
That was amazing. And one of my favorite words that you used today was being geo-independent. So I love that as well. All right. Well, it's a good thing you have all those tools behind you, and I want to let you go, Todd, before your LED lights turn green there.
I blocked off 2 hours. It's not going to happen for another 40 minutes.
You're ready to be done with me, but there's just so much that you've shared with us today that would give all of us, a great deal of pause and say, wow, truly, truly, truly thinking, way too small, way too static, and you've taken some big steps in really shaking up the brain and in getting the energy flowing. So thank you so much. I'm glad you addressed also the issues around the cyber connectivity, because as you pointed out a couple of weeks ago, we did have another very interesting webinar on cyber and going through the incredible risks of all these interconnected devices and how the smallest interconnected device could be the gateway, whether it's even like a fish tank or something, right, into opening
The Las Vegas fish tank.
yeah, opening
People love that story.
yeah. So you talked about locking that down and the other mechanics around that as well. So no one can use that as a stumbling block or an excuse to not really embrace everything that interconnectivity and technology has to offer today. And I loved what you talked about with the journey mapping. We've done that at the chamber in terms of reimagining the whole process of working with members, onboarding them, et cetera. So it was amazing what we came up with and all the things that we found that we needed to plug. So again, lots to think about. And I do want to say that for folks that are watching and saying, that doesn't apply to me. Our organization is too small, or we're too this, or we're too that. I know, Todd, you would say, baloney, this is for everybody, and you have to be there. You have to do this, and nobody's exempt, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely right. And that's true, by the way, on the security side too. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, we're too small. We're not the target. That's actually 180 degrees from true. Small businesses and mid-market are the target these days for cyber criminals. If you've got to defend yourself anyway, why not set the stage and innovate along the way?
Fantastic. So just tell our folks before you leave the best way to get a hold of you. I know you have 5 or 6 ways, but the best way is through Microsoft Teams, right, Todd?
Yeah, you can. I mean, honestly, Microsoft Teams and email, or give us a call at our main office, either one. And really, if you walk away from this and you go, I didn't understand that one thing, or I have one question, one thought, and you didn't post it here. That's okay. Reach out to me. I'm always happy to just brainstorm with people. It doesn't need to be a business-centric call. Just give me a call and let's stay connected as a community.
Fantastic. Todd Knapp with Envision Technology Advisors. Really have enjoyed being with you today. We've learned so much, and truly invite you to come back when you've built your next big thing. So have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.